If we were to boil down our posture towards our interactions with young children, they could be put into two main groups. One, where we are playful, flexible, and almost childlike. Then on the other hand, we have one that is firm and kind of cold and may not like children very much. Now, of course, there are many different postures in between these two, but for the most part, our interactions with young children usually encompass both of these postures, and sometimes more of one than the other. Let's take a moment to think about our own personal posture when it comes to young children. Do you lean more towards the side where you're more flexible, or are you a little bit more cold or stern with young children? Picture this. You're interacting with a group of young children, and you notice that some of them kind of get on your nerves. Some of them do things that make you feel uncomfortable or you don't really agree with. You notice that you start to tense up, and before you think about how you're going to approach them, you find yourself already walking up to them with this kind of angry demeanor. You say to the children doing whatever they're doing, and you say, "Stop, you're not allowed doing that. Go do something else." The children sort of look at you with an expression of mixed emotions, and they go on to do something else. A few minutes later, you notice that the children are once again doing something that sort of ruffles your feathers. And like before, you go over to them and you tell them to stop, and you tell them to go do something else. Let's take a moment to think about how might the children be feeling towards your interactions with them. And likewise, let's think about how you're feeling about these children and having this sort of interaction with them. The thing is, it's quite common for young children's words, actions, and attitudes to sort of ruffle our feathers the wrong way. We, as adults and as people who have lived on this earth for longer, have for the most part gone through this process of making our feathers nice and smooth. We know how to engage with this world that doesn't ruffle any other people's feathers. And so when children come along and they ruffle our feathers so much so that we're almost unaccustomed to it, then we kind of have a triggered response that may not be the best when it comes to our interactions and relationships with young children. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be firm with young children or that we shouldn't hold children to a certain standard. Rather, what I want to invite us to think about is the difference between being firm and being straight out mean towards young children. Now, on the surface, if we're just looking at the two of them with a very shallow mindset, then they might look very similar. But when we take the time to really examine the difference, then we notice that there are more differences than similarities. For starters, when we're being mean, our intention comes from ourselves. We feel like there is something bothering us, and so we're going to address it. And we're going to address it in a way that makes us feel better. When it comes to being firm, the intention usually comes from the relationship you have with this child, and a foundation that wants this child to be better, do better, and ultimately engage more positively with the people around them. When we think about this in the context of playing, and children are playing in ways that may not be appropriate, for example, throwing rocks, someone with a mean posture might yell at the children and just say, "Hey, stop that, put the rock down." On the other hand, someone with a firm posture might say something similar in that, "Hey, you need to stop that. Rocks are not for throwing, and I'm worried you might get hurt." The motive of both of these postures is to get the children to stop throwing these rocks. But when we are being firm with young children, we are hoping that they understand why they need to stop and how they can redirect themselves to do something that is more positive. Now let's think about this in the eyes of the child. For the child, these two may very well look exactly the same. And so it's very important that we as adults, we as people interacting with young children, need to be very clear with our wording, to take the extra step to explain why we are saying these things and where do these words come from. Ultimately, when we are being a little bit mean or harsh with children, there is a place where these are coming from. But that place may not have the children in mind, in that we want to care for them, we want to nurture them, we want to support them to engage more positively with the world around them. When we are firm with young children, we are inviting them into a space that allows them to process through what's going on, instead of stopping and stifling them when we are just being mean. This way, children can take what they're learning, take these difficult and maybe even uncomfortable processes of working through why what they're doing may not be appropriate, to then be able to process through things in the future on their own, or maybe even with other young children. This then creates a snowball effect where children are able to help one another, children are able to support one another, and children are able to reflect and evaluate when someone is being firm or when someone is just being straight out mean. This then helps them take uncomfortable moments, difficult moments, moments that they're struggling through, to be confident in being able to watch, think, be.